There's a lot of interesting ways to make money in the motorcycle industry, or just being around motorcycles, that I'm going to help fill you guys in on some of them. I'm Sean Kirk, and this is Srkcycles. What's up, guys? I'm Sean from Srkcycles, and I'm going to tell you guys a really unique way that pretty much anyone can do to make an extra $50,000 or more or less per year. I did it when I was in college, and I'm going to fill you guys in on it. So when I was in college, this was maybe 9 years ago. When I was in college, I started wholesaling motorcycles to different local dealerships. Local, like, an hour and a half away. They weren't that local, but fairly local. And what I started doing was I made good relationships with these dealerships, and I'd find out what bikes they were specifically looking for, what bikes they wanted, what bikes they were trying to track down. And then I'd call them up and say, hey, what are you guys looking for this week? And they'd be like, we're looking for 2 of these and 1 of these and 3 of these. And I'd say, well, okay, how much money? So I had a ballpark of what I was looking for. And then when I would find the bike, I'd call my contact at the dealership and say, hey, all right, I got this bike in this condition. How much do you guys want to pay for it? And if I could make money in between, it was a go. Normally I wouldn't get in my truck and drive anywhere unless I was going to make at least $500, because there's different variables and stuff. But sometimes you make more. Sometimes I make $1,000. Sometimes something crazy happens, you make $1,500. So I did this over and over and over again. I probably did this for about 100 bikes over the next couple years, and it's fun. Anyone can do it. You'll learn a lot about bikes, but there are a lot of mistakes you can make. So I'm going to fill you guys in on specifically how to do this if you wanted to do this. First step is you need to make relationships with a dealership. When I say that, sounds kind of funny to say relationships. I don't mean relationships. I mean you need to become friends with someone at a dealership and talk to them, get an idea, tell them what you want to do. Be like, hey, I'm trying to get into the motorcycle industry. I want to help you guys out. I want to flip some bikes. What are you guys looking for? And you might get stonewalled. You might find that some dealerships want nothing to do with you. They don't want to buy any bikes from you, and they don't want any bikes. But then you might find that some other dealership would be like, yeah, if you can get us this bike at this price, I don't care how much you make. That's kind of how we look at it. So the next thing is you want to find out how much and what they're looking to buy. You can't just go to a Harley-Davidson dealership and take some Suzuki GSX-R 600 that you bought to them and be like, hey man, give me $500 more than what I paid for it. They couldn't care less. It doesn't work that way. You gotta figure out what they want. Another big trick of the trade is when you're buying, this is good for anyone who's buying any bike at any time, even for yourself. It's very important that you have cash on you pretty much all the time. People like cash when you're buying from strangers. They don't want to be taking a check or anything, or most people can't take credit card. So you'll always have cash on you. And if you have cash, so think about it. When are most people going to be listing a motorcycle? Probably when they get off of work, right? Maybe 7 o'clock. All right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to list my bike, list it for sale. Well, at that point, banks are already closed. So when the listing popped up, banks are closed. No one can actually put money down and buy the bike. And you have a window from the banks are closed to when people go to sleep to when they wake up and banks open. So that was always kind of a real nice sweet spot. I'd see a good listing at 5 o'clock. No one else is able to get to the bank as fast. They can't sometimes it takes a little while to collect the money. You got to move stuff to accounts. If you call up a guy at 5:30, banks close at 5, and you're like, hey, listen, you're asking, your bike's a killer deal. I want to buy that bike. I got cash on me. I'm on my way. If you're an hour away, just let the guy know. Be like, listen, I'm on my way. I'm bringing cash. Don't sell that bike to anyone else. And then, you go up there, you do the deal, you look at it, you negotiate, whatever. But most people can't do that. Most people be like, hey, listen, I'm coming up tomorrow. I can get cash tomorrow after work. Right there, you got 24 hours. That's where your sweet spot. That's where you go get that bike. Another thing you got to be doing, you got to be searching nonstop. And this is what kind of got me. This is what kind of beat me up a little bit. About 2 years of, I'm newly married and, just trying to work and all these things and just being on my phone on Craigslist nonstop, searching for bikes. It kind of wore on me. But you want to be on Craigslist nonstop and Facebook Marketplace and the other motorcycle listing sites, maybe even like forums, just finding whatever best deals you can. Then you also have to be willing to drive a couple hours. I remember times that the deal was good enough. If you're near a military base, I was fairly close to, not fairly close, I was 8 hours away from Fort Bragg, but I drove to Fort Bragg multiple times because what you end up happening is you got a bunch of guys that they currently have more money than they've ever had in their lifetime, and then now they're getting deployed, so they're getting rid of their stuff or something, and a lot of really good deals are going on near military bases. So you're not nonstop searching. Some of the risks of doing something like this is, sometimes the deals get a little sketchy. Sometimes that deal's a little too good. Now you get better at it as you go, but sometimes the deals get a little sketchy, and you start realizing, okay, I'm going to meet some strangers. You go through a sketchy neighborhood. You know what? I want to give this guy a call. We're going to meet at a more neutral location, or something like that. If they know you have cash, that could be a little sketchy. Another big risk is now you've started this little company, and your customer is the dealership. So you can't just bring the bike to them and be like, buy it. And then they're like, oh, we don't really want this bike. And you're like, screw you. You can't do that. Now, at that point, you ruin the relationship. You have to, if the dealership gets it and they're like, hey man, you missed this. You gotta eat it. You gotta take the bike back. You gotta do something else with it. You gotta sell to them for cheaper. You gotta lose money. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's your customer, and that's where you have to do your due diligence when you buy the bike properly. Now, another thing is, when you're doing this, you would eventually need to become like an agent, a buying agent of the dealership. Now, different states have different laws. You can't just go flipping bikes and become your own little dealer by flipping bikes in your garage, because in states like Pennsylvania and things, you can only buy five vehicles in a year. Now, then you could put 5 vehicles in your wife's name if you wanted to do that, but still you have to pay taxes on all those vehicles, and that starts creeping in. But if you're buying it like for the dealership, to do this, you have to have a pretty good relationship with the dealership. And it also depends on the different states' laws. The pros, you're getting quick turnover. You can move a lot of bikes. The dealership's gonna love you. They might give you some perks. They might say, you might be able to test drive these bikes, throw a dealer tag on and test drive if you just brought it to them. So I did pretty well. Some of my best deals, I made $1,500 to $2,000 on a couple bikes. But normally I didn't get out of bed unless I was pretty sure I was gonna unless the numbers worked out that I was gonna make at least $500 on that bike. Some were closer, some were farther away. Sometimes I spend 16 hours driving in that day just to bring back a bike. But it got my foot in the door. I met a lot of cool contacts, and ultimately it's kind of how I ended up where I'm at right now. So I hope that helps you guys out, and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.